When my wife's lover barged into my house, threw a thick stack of money on the table, and declared, "I'm buying you out. Leave this house and never come back. Your wife belongs to me now," I couldn't help but smile. Not because I agreed, but because the moment was so absurd, so laughably arrogant, that it became almost entertaining. What he didn't know was that I had been preparing for this very moment. While he thought he had control of the situation, I had already laid the groundwork for something he couldn't even imagine. To outsiders, my life looked like the picture of perfection. I was Marcus Engel, a meticulous financial consultant, living in a pristine townhouse in Munich with my wife, Amelia. She was an art historian, charming, captivating, the kind of woman who could light up a room with her mere presence. Together, we appeared to be a power couple. But perfection is a fragile illusion, and the cracks in our life began to appear in ways I could no longer ignore. It started with Amelia working late, more often than usual. Her phone buzzed constantly, and her patience with me grew thin. I brushed off the signs at first, convinced myself it was just stress. But everything shifted the night I came home early. Her phone was on the kitchen counter, unlocked. A message preview caught my eye. "I miss you too, mon amour. Can't wait for Friday." My stomach dropped. The sender? Lucien Dubois. I didn't know the man yet, but I knew enough to recognize betrayal staring me in the face. Instead of confronting Amelia right away, I made a decision. I needed to know the full story before I acted. Over the following weeks, I became a silent observer, transforming from devoted husband to cold investigator. I tracked her movements, noted her lies. She wasn't working late at the museum. Dinner receipts from fancy restaurants I'd never been to with her told me otherwise. Her wardrobe became more vibrant, more seductive, in ways I hadn't seen in years. It all fit into a pattern. I hired a private investigator through my professional network. The reports came in slowly, confirming my worst suspicions. Amelia was seeing Lucien Dubois, a Parisian art dealer with a reputation for charm and a history of targeting wealthy women. The investigator painted a damning picture: secret rendezvous, luxury hotels, and a trail of deceit. But what infuriated me most wasn't just the affair. It was Lucien's arrogance. He had been bragging to his friends about seducing my wife, about how I was too busy counting my money to notice. That was the spark I needed. If he thought I was oblivious, he was about to learn otherwise. One cold evening, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Lucien standing there, his smirk brimming with confidence. Without waiting for an invitation, he stepped inside, the kind of man who thought the world revolved around him. He casually placed an envelope on the table, a thick one, and sat down as if he owned the place. "Marcus," he began, his voice smooth and self-assured, "let's not beat around the bush. You know why I'm here." He gestured to the envelope. "That's 50,000 euros. Take it, pack your things, and leave. Amelia deserves a better life, one you clearly can't give her. I'm here to make it easier for you." I stared at him, incredulous. He actually thought he could buy me out of my own life. Keeping my voice steady, I asked, "You think this will work? That you can just walk in here, wave some cash, and I'll disappear?" Lucien leaned back, a smug grin on his face. "It's more than fair, Marcus. Amelia doesn't love you anymore. She's made her choice. This just formalizes it." I let the silence hang in the air for a moment, then smiled faintly. "Euro 50,000, I repeated, standing up. "Generous offer. But let me tell you something." I leaned in close, lowering my voice to a whisper. "You have no idea what you've just started." Lucien raised an eyebrow, confused. "And what's that supposed to mean?" I chuckled softly, walking him to the door. "Oh, you'll see. Enjoy the next 24 hours, Lucien. After that, your life will never be the same." As soon as he left, I sprang into action. Years of navigating high-stakes financial deals had taught me the value of patience, precision, and timing. Now, I would apply those skills to dismantling not just Lucien, but the fantasy life he thought he was building with Amelia. My first call was to my lawyer. Buried within the prenuptial agreement Amelia had signed years ago was a clause I had almost forgotten about, one that would now become my most powerful weapon. It stipulated that if she committed infidelity, she forfeited any claim to my assets. The evidence I had gathered, text messages, receipts, private investigator reports, made the case airtight. Amelia would be left with nothing. Next, I turned my attention to Lucien. The private investigator had uncovered a gold mine of dirt on him. Lucien was drowning in debt, having borrowed heavily to maintain his lavish lifestyle. Worse, many of his art deals were fraudulent. He sold forgeries to wealthy collectors, a scheme that had somehow escaped scrutiny. Until now. I compiled every piece of incriminating evidence and began quietly distributing it to the right people, investigators, journalists, and even some of his disgruntled clients. But I wasn't done. Financial ruin and public humiliation were only part of my plan. Lucien had made a mockery of my life, and I intended to show him what it meant to challenge someone who had spent years mastering the art of control. By the time I was finished, his charm would be nothing but a distant memory, and his reputation would be ashes. As I set my plans in motion, I felt an eerie sense of calm. This wasn't revenge born out of rage. It was calculated, deliberate, and inevitable. Lucien and Amelia had played their game, but now they were stepping into mine. They just didn't know it yet. Lucien and Amelia thought they could build their fantasy life on the ruins of Marcus's world, but Marcus had other plans. He wasn't seeking fleeting satisfaction or reckless vengeance. He wanted them to truly feel the weight of their actions, a burden they would carry for years to come. Marcus began with precision. He leaked Lucien's massive debts to a man named Friedrich Stahl, a ruthless art collector and creditor with a fearsome reputation. Marcus had met Friedrich years ago at a networking event and knew the man's unforgiving nature when it came to unpaid loans. An anonymous tip about Lucien's mounting debts and shady dealings was all it took. Within days, whispers spread like wildfire through the art world. Collectors canceled deals, exhibitions were withdrawn, and Lucien found himself scrambling to keep up appearances as his carefully crafted reputation unraveled. At the same time, Marcus moved against Amelia without her even realizing it. He quietly liquidated joint assets they owned, selling off furniture, art pieces, and even the car she adored. Amelia, caught up in her whirlwind romance with Lucien, hardly noticed the changes until the day the car disappeared. When she asked Marcus about it, his response was ice cold. "Oh, I thought you wouldn't care," he said flatly. "After all, you've already moved on." The indifference in his tone left her speechless, a tiny crack in her confidence. As Lucien's financial troubles mounted, the cracks in their relationship widened. The smooth-talking Parisian, once so charming and confident, began to unravel under pressure. He became irritable, controlling, and paranoid. The late-night phone calls and weak excuses Amelia had once overlooked now became impossible to ignore. And then came the most humiliating sign of all. Lucien started asking her for money. Amelia, who had believed she was stepping into a glamorous new life, began to see the man behind the facade. The allure faded, replaced by a growing sense of unease. Marcus's plan escalated to its climax with a single, devastating act. He arranged for Lucien to receive a mysterious package, delivered directly to Amelia's house. Inside, Lucien found a bound report, meticulously compiled, detailing every dark secret he'd worked so hard to hide. His debts, his fraudulent art deals, even photographs of him meeting with dubious individuals, all laid bare. At the bottom of the report was a simple note: "You thought you could win, but you've already lost." What followed was chaos. Though Marcus wasn't there to witness it, he could imagine the confrontation between Lucien and Amelia. The shouting, the accusations, the shattering of the illusions they'd built together. Their perfect little fantasy crumbled before their eyes. Marcus, however, saved his most devastating move for last. With the help of his lawyer, he filed for divorce, presenting the court with undeniable proof of Amelia's infidelity. The prenuptial agreement, carefully crafted years ago, ensured that she walked away with nothing. No house, no savings, not even the furniture she'd once so proudly chosen. The day Amelia received the divorce papers, she came to Marcus, tears streaming down her face. Her voice trembled as she pleaded with him. "Marcus, please. I made a mistake. Lucien isn't who I thought he was. I was wrong. Can't we fix this?" Marcus looked at her, his face calm but unreadable. For a moment, he thought of the life they'd built together, the laughter, the dreams, the shared moments that once felt unbreakable. But then he remembered the lies, the betrayal, and the man who had barged into his home and tried to buy him out of his own life. He met her gaze and said, quietly but firmly, "No, Amelia. You made your choice. Now you'll have to live with it." 1 year later, Marcus's life was unrecognizable, in the best possible way. He had relocated to London, where he launched his own successful consulting firm. Free from the weight of a toxic marriage, he rediscovered himself, finding joy in his independence and purpose in his work. The skyline of London became his daily reminder of the life he had reclaimed, one built on his terms. Lucien, on the other hand, was a ghost of the man he had once pretended to be. Pursued by creditors and embroiled in lawsuits, he fled the country, leaving behind a legacy of fraud and disgrace. Amelia, stripped of everything, returned to Munich, where she was forced to take a job far beneath her qualifications. The life she had once thrown away became a distant, painful memory. One evening, Marcus received a letter from Amelia. It was filled with apologies and regret. She admitted she had been wrong, that she had destroyed their marriage and lost everything. She begged for forgiveness, asking if there was any chance to make things right. Marcus read the letter in silence, then folded it neatly and set it aside. As he sipped his coffee, gazing out over the London skyline, he reflected on the journey that had brought him here. He realized that revenge wasn't about destroying others, it was about reclaiming his own power, about rebuilding the life he deserved. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't in tearing others down, it's in moving on, thriving, and leaving them behind.